Well, last night we had a very stimulating discussion on connecting with the polarization of our world on online on Zoom with my good friend Miles Kessler, and I felt the conversation had opened up a lot of doorways for me, and specifically along the themes of what Miles brought up concerning uh, polarities and being in a positive life positive polarity versus a positive negative polarity. And positive negative polarity is that kind of polarity that occurs when you judge something as good and bad, and there's no fundamental way for them to co-create a solution because it's either one or the other. Where a life positive and life positive polarity is when you uh, take the other polarity and you're able to recognize that it has some positive attributes and some reasons for its existence, and that you attempt to um, connect with that, identify that. The term that Miles had used was steel man, that which is the opposite of straw man, which you kind of give validation to a certain extent that you recognize that they have a perspective and that their perspective is driving their behavior, driving their position. And so this was an interesting take on this, and I definitely resonate with that message. And what came up this morning that I wanted to add to the conversation was one way of kind of identifying or being able to create or move from a positive negative polarity, a good bad dichotomy, to a life positive or positive positive polarity where there's a possibility of a collaboration or some creative process that comes together in having these two perspectives meet and communicate. And so one metaphor that shows up for me that helps illustrate that difference is the idea that let's say humanity, all of humanity, is like a large conscious brain, and that each human being is a neuron in that brain. So if that's the case, then when we meet somebody that we're in conflict or in polarity with, we are in polarity within a system that we coexist in, are fundamentally supported by. So if we recognize this, we recognize, hey, this is a neuron in the brain that I am. This is another neuron in the brain that I exist in. I see that neuron. I see that other perspective. I see that other polarity in a very different light than if I see it as being something separate from me. Something, okay, this is foreign. This is in antagonistical relationship to me. And my survival, my success, my ability to succeed uh, is dictates that I try to destroy this. I try to remove this. I try to deny this. I try to resist this. And that by denying this, by destroying this, I'm saved, or I'm able to continue to be successful. I can win. So this is a zero sum type of approach where the amount of my success is equated to the amount of the downfall of the other perspective. So this is the way we normally see conflict, the way we normally see polarization, is that sense of winning over, dominating over, being successful over another person. And that's the way we have formulated and have tried to facilitate polarization and conflict that comes out of polarization so often in our history. And this is the belief that supports war. But when you move into that larger context and see, okay, no, wait, all exist in a larger, more systemic experience of ourselves. And that systemic experience means that I'm an I, but I'm also a we. And I am this neuron, but I am the brain as well. And that brain contains all the other neurons that that coexist with me. And those other neurons are an extension of my systemic experience of we. So when I meet another, I'm also meeting, in a way, myself. And and if I can tap into the health and well-being of that larger brain and respond appropriately in honoring my own perspective, and also meaning that I may need to change my perspective if I discover new information or a deeper, more mature perspective, right? In that polarization, maybe the other person has something to say that I'm unaware of. And when I receive that, I'm elevated, I'm matured, my consciousness expands. So I'm open for receiving information, but I'm also clear about establishing clear boundaries, those things that honor my own system. I'm not attempting to deny the fact that there are some quote unquote neurons with very malevolent and malicious intent. And that comes from their own perspective and how they've encountered life, and now through maybe a very immature perspective, the one that war is a successful tool for human evolution, or war is a necessary tool for human conflict. That, for me, is an immature perspective. It's one that is inhibiting our evolution and our capacity to grow into a fundamentally more systemic, integrated, compassionate, loving, and healthy in concept, in connection with the environment, connection with nature, a human being that lives in harmony with its environment. So war is fundamentally an inhibiting factor for that development. So I refer to that as being a less mature or immature perspective, but there are many people who still believe in war, and they have good, solid, what they consider good, solid reasons for that. And I understand that because we're transitioning out of that, but that still needs to be addressed with some clarity and with enough strength to bring about positive collaborative change for humanity. So in that sense, polarization can be a creative coming together between self and other in that larger context of a we. And this is fundamentally the foundation for the training that we do in Aikido, where Aikido becomes that metaphor, that physical, actual expression of polarity within unity. And that has to be that has to be accessed by at least the individuals practicing the Aikido, the recognition we exist in a system. And I'm meeting you in that system. And that system, I am that one that meets you, and I'm also the system that contains us both. Anyway.